Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true. Digicel Joy and overjoyed Antoinette Green celebrates her win of $10,000 supermarket voucher in the first week of the Digicel Shake It Till You Make It roadshow in Halfway 3 St. Andrews recently. Every Friday until January 14, 2022, the Digicel Shake It Christmas car will be driving around town, giving Digicel customers a chance to answer 5 questions correctly within 3 minutes to earn guaranteed Shake to Win prize instantly, including $20,000 cash, 2 months mobile service valued at $10,000, and GPS or supermarket voucher worth $10,000. Dine crash victim's thoughts turned to mom. Hours before he died, Artigo Baptist's thoughts turned to his mother. He didn't want her to see the injuries he had sustained during the 2-vehicle crash that occurred exactly 1 week before his 32nd birthday. Him tell me say, him no want him mother see him in this way because she couldn't manage seeing him like that, said Christopher Taylor, the longtime friend and business partner. He reported that Artigo made mention of his mother during a good conversation they had as he sat beside his bed at Portmore Hospital in St. Mary shortly after the smash-up. Taylor and Artigo didn't explicitly explain any thoughts about dying, but he gave instruction for his parents to each get a vehicle from the car rental business he co-owned. Hannah K. Hyatt, a maternal aunt of the deceased, said that Artigo loved his mother and father very much. She added, "If Humber was a person, it would have been him." She said her sister Claudine Evans suffered a minor stroke and had to be taken to hospital after hearing about her son's demise. She is now out of the medical facility, but she is on medication. For Artigo's relatives and friends, the unexpectedness of his passing has made the loss that much harder to bear. Taylor recalled that he and his business partner were in the streets virtually all day November 26, not knowing that they were spending their last moments together. Artigas eventually went to his home in Buckfield, Ocho Rios. When he was there, a client returned a rental vehicle and requested that Artigo drop him in Ocho Rios Town Center. When Artigo did that, he reportedly saw some of his friends stranded, and so he opted to take them in his vehicle from Ocho Rios to their destination in neighboring St. Mary. He is the type of person who wouldn't leave them a road, Taylor said. Tragedy struck about 9 p.m. on the Wilderness Main Road in Aracabesa, St. Mary, according to a press release from the Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF. It is reported that a 33-year-old driver, Philip Walker, was overtaking another vehicle when his car collided in the Toyota Axio that was being driven by Artigo. The collision killed Walker and his 17-year-old passenger, Andrew Phillips, both from St. Mary. It also killed Artigo and one of 2 passengers traveling with him, the JCF added. The passenger who died in Artigo's car is Marsha Simpson, who was a community health aide at Steertown Health Center in St. Anne. When Taylor heard that Artigo was involved in the crash, he visited him at the Portmore Hospital and stayed with him until about 3 o'clock the following morning. He recalled helping to put Artigo into an ambulance in which he was being transferred to Another Bay Hospital, also in St. Mary. Taylor was devastated when, a few hours later, he got news that his friend had died. Still trying to come to terms with the loss, Taylor reported that he and Artigo were close friends since they were enrolled at Ocho Rios High School. Both of them also previously worked in the hotel industry. The late Artigo did stint as a bartender at Rio and Sanders Resort in Ocho Rios until he joined the staff at Carnival Cruise Line. About a year ago, he reportedly fell ill while working for Carnival and had to make an emergency trip home for treatment. Instead of returning to the ship, Artigo joined Taylor in the motor vehicle rental business. Although Artigo had no children, he was a breadwinner for his family, Taylor said. He has a little brother in high school, and that brother was his pride and joy. He, Artigo, was the humblest person you could ever find. He didn't give any problem at all, Taylor added. Passengers shun taxi because of duppy fares. When 62-year-old St. Mary taxi driver Delroy agreed to transport one of his friend's grandfather to the Anatomy Bay Hospital some 5 years ago, he had no idea that the man would die in his vehicle, resulting in a number of his regular passengers opting not to drive with him after learning of the incident. Delroy reported that while he was not shaken by the experience, he understood that some of his passengers were afraid to travel with him because a dead man in the vehicle. A gentleman who I know from school days asked me to carry his father to the hospital. I went up to the home and they assisted me and put the elderly gentleman in the car, and I took him to the hospital. We were there waiting on the porters to come and take out the gentleman, and by the time the porters them come, is a dead man in the car, Delroy recalled. Then hear the big thing about it now. When me come round and fi load up me car, fi go apply me regular route, people them no want come in a me car. Them say, other car they carry the dead people them, Delroy continued. He said that he was not 100% sure how people learned of the incident, but he suspected that they heard through the grapevine. Not being one to fear death, Delroy said, "To be honest, I didn't clean the car because he was in good clothes and him never leave any residue in my car, so me never have no reason to do that. A man dead and a me car, and personally, me no see nothing wrong with that." According to Delroy, he lost some amount of money when passengers refused to drive with him, but me never really take it too seriously because me know how Jamaican people say, a one-day thing them deal with, so me know after a while it'll go wear off. Noting that the fear for his passengers' experience last about 2 weeks, Delroy said he was extremely thankful to his loyal customers who stuck with him and didn't abandon him after learning about the incident. You have some people will not go leave you out regardless of what. So you have some 1 or 2 people will come with me still until things went back to normal, Delroy stated. Bartlett is new chair for Inter-American Committee on Tourism. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett has been elected as the new chairman of the Organization of American States, OAS, Inter-American Committee on Tourism, CITUR. Minister Bartlett came out ahead of candidates from Paraguay and Ecuador for the chairmanship at a meeting on Tuesday. Paraguay and Ecuador will serve as vice chair of the committee. Chair of the OAS Inter-American Council for Integral Development, Jamaica's ambassador to the United States, Arthur Marks, congratulated Minister Bartlett on behalf of the member states. "I wish you much success in the work that you will be leading as we begin deliberations to prepare the draft work plan based on the Declaration of Paraguay towards the reconstruction and rebuilding of tourism post-coronavirus," she said. Bartlett, in his response, called on all member states to work together to complete the plans and policy programs that they have started. This, he said, would require a greater sense of innovation as we cannot continue with things as they are. "We must now seek to find new ways to deal with new disruptions that seem destined to follow this pandemic," he added. Minister Bartlett thanked member states for the confidence placed in him by way of his election to the chair of the committee. He pledged to be strong, fruitful, and vibrant chairman and called for the support of each member state. "We have so much to do, and I know the Americas are depending on us to chart the way to recovery and to thrive after recovery," he said. Pandemic has significantly impacted people with disability. The Caribbean Community CARICOM Special Rapporteur on Disability, Dr. Floyd Morris, stated that the novel coronavirus pandemic has caused devastating consequences for individuals across the Caribbean and world, but it has impacted in a significant way, more than others, people with disabilities. The crisis has exacerbated all problems that have served to restrict and isolate persons with disabilities from mainstream society. This has been the experience for the majority of persons with disabilities in the Caribbean, Morris said in a message marking the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, IDPD. Speaking on the theme, Leadership and Participation of Persons with Disabilities Towards an Inclusive, Accessible and Sustainable Post-COVID-19 World, Murray said, notwithstanding the challenges the pandemic has caused persons with disabilities across the Caribbean, we must dig deep in our inner reserves and face the future with optimism. We have to strengthen the resolve that come what may, we are going to continue to advocate for the inclusion, participation, and non-discrimination of persons with disabilities in mainstream Caribbean society, he said. Murray said that the theme to mark the global recognition of IDPD is important, noting that people with disabilities have to become masters of their own destiny, and as such, they have to assert themselves and demand participation and inclusion in the post-COVID-19 world. The experiences of the pandemic for persons with disabilities in this Caribbean have demonstrated that if we are not included and allowed to participate in the development agenda of the region, further marginalization of the community will take place. Therefore, focus has to be placed on visionary and assertive leadership from members of the community of persons with disabilities to consistently place on the development agenda issues that are pertinent to the well-being and advancement of this community in our societies. Murray said, using the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and the Declaration of Pigeon Village as a guide, people with disabilities in the Caribbean must demand from their government greater inclusion, accessibility, and a sustainable future in this country. In this context, greater inclusion and participation in education and training, increased access to employment opportunities, access to health care, inclusion and participation in the community, accessible transport and public facilities are some of the issues that must be given priority by governments in the region in the post-COVID-19 Caribbean for persons with disabilities. He said that at the core of the regional advocacy, there is need to adapt to human rights approach to sustainable development. We must ensure that individuals understand that we are human beings and as such are subject to the fundamental rights and freedoms entrenched in diverse international treaties. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell for daily updates.